Okay, we're live with Nadim. We were going to talk about rights for a little bit. He was telling me just now his perspective on it. So take it away, Nadim.
Okay, sure. Sorry, guys. Like my voice is a bit iffy today. Um, you take it away.
Okay, basically, I was telling Nadim that I thought that the argument of saying that rights are not real uh, if they can be violated to me seemed a little bit Gnostic. And the scenario that I gave him was, um, let's say uh, you're being subjected to theft. A group of brigands ambushes you. The king's men arrive too late to protect you from the thieves. Does this mean that the king didn't protect you and that he's a bad king who denied you your rights? I would
that
say
no,
no.
that,
Let
that's
me
a straw
finish
man.
the
That's a straw man, though. That's not
let
what
me
I'm saying.
finish the argument.
Sure, sure.
So um, what I'm saying is that there is no reason for there to being laws if the laws couldn't be violated. So to say that rights aren't real when they're violated, to me, undermines the reason for the law's existence in the first place, and it also presents to us a very Gnostic view of how laws can participate of in the life of God. So
No,
that was
no,
the point.
that's a straw man. No one. You're equating law to right. That no one ever denied law. No one ever like. I'm not denying law. I'm not denying the ability of a monarch to give righteous law. I'm not denying that. I don't know why you're equating a law being infringed to the right, because a law being infringed um, is is just a law being infringed. It's not like anyone could infringe a law. But you were talking about you were talking about something called the God given right, or the God a heavenly right, and I'm saying rights are equated to law. Okay, rights nowadays, okay, they're equated to law. Okay, so whatever the if a law is infringed, then it means the right is being infringed. That's what people are saying. So if the law is infringed, it doesn't, so it means the right is being infringed in the way it's being used today. So in this sense of a right, it doesn't exist. This idea of a right doesn't exist, because in their idea a right cannot be infringed, or a right cannot be violated. Well, yes, of course it can be violated in the physical world, because it's being violated. I could infringe whatever law, and that means I'm violating a right. That's the definition of a right being infringed. So of course this sort of right doesn't exist. But if you want to talk into like a righteous king or a heavenly given law, I could agree with that. There's laws that we have a duty to follow if our leader has given it to us. It doesn't mean that I'm a Gnostic, or because I don't agree that a king could be righteous, or I don't agree a law could be righteous. No, of course I do. That's not what I'm arguing here. I think it's a straw man.
No, no, that's not actually what I was saying. What I was asking was, if a right is violated, does it mean it doesn't exist?
In the sense that it's being used today, the right doesn't exist. Yes, a right. But in that case, the you Ivan is equating a right to God's energies. Okay, so those energies still exist. I could agree with that. So what is just still exists. So if someone infringed the your ability to do something just, or is doing something unjust to you, I don't think that's a just thing to do. I think it's a violation of what is just. If you want to define a right to what is just, then I don't mind using that word. You know, that's the thing we've been arguing for an hour on Discord. I think we agree completely. It's just the use of the word. So
Well,
if it's
but
used like that, listen,
the argument hinged upon.
if it's being used like that, the right, then I don't mind. You can't understand that. You can't understand. It's been an hour. I've been telling you.
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying. What I mean is, um, people are saying not to use the word right when I think the very word, the very conception of the word right is
Sure, we
very.
could go into the epistemology of the word, or it.
But it's
That's
not just the
that's not the
word.
argumentation that's being used by Jim Bob and Andrew and what I was trying to use yesterday in the stream. That's not the argument I was, or before yesterday. I know. That's not the argument I was using. That, yeah, there's nothing just, or nothing just exists. That's not what we were saying. But we're equating the definition of what is just by what is just. We're not calling it a right. That's the only thing that differs between you and them. I agree with your video. I agree with the importance of a ruler, with the importance of the law that's given, and the righteousness that comes from it, and the God-given law that is given by God. If we believe in the sacrament of a monarch, I understand that. I understand the fact that we there is righteousness, but it that's I'm calling it what is just, or what is right in the eyes of God. The energies of God that determine what is right for each person, what is just. But I don't know why you want to call it a right. No, I know, I understand why you want to call it a right. I don't understand why you don't want us to just define it. We're just using the same definition as you. Were just not using the word you're using. That's the only thing that differs. I've been
I,
telling you for hours. I agree with you. You
I
just don't
didn't
want.
understand the last part. I'm sorry. I didn't understand the last
I'm
part.
saying we're okay. You're saying a right means what is just. I'm saying I'm using, when you're using right, I'm just using what is just. So I'm not just using the definition of your definition of right. It might be the true definition. I can grant you that, okay? But it I'm not using it because the definition of right, like for example, if I'm arguing with someone that agrees in the rights given by the Constitution or whatever, I will not use the word right. I would say his definition of the word right, this metaphysical thing that they argue is a right, in their definition doesn't exist. Their definition, there's nothing, no such thing as what they're talking about. Can you agree with that? With what the liberals are
Yes and
saying?
no. Yes and no, because what I think is being, let's say, equivocated here is that they're saying basically the way that modernity produces rights is illegitimate, so those rights are not real. And I would say they are real insofar as they mimic the real thing. They are not real in the sense
No,
that
those
anyone.
rights are not.
I'm gonna mute you, Nadim, if you interrupt me. So
Okay. But you told me I could give my arguments because like I
yes,
can't
but you can give your arguments, but
can't
you
text
cannot
as
interrupt. You
I
cannot
can't text.
interrupt other. No, you cannot interrupt other people arguing. When you can
I
speak, you
was
can
just
speak.
saying I can't text as fast as you. Sorry, don't take it personally.
No,
No, I was
no,
just
I
saying I
don't take
can't
it
text.
personally. What I do take personally is you interrupting me while I'm
I'm
speaking.
gonna
When
mute.
I'm speaking, you shut up. Okay. Now, what I was saying is, I think that the way that these people are using rights in a way to attack modern conception of rights is correct in saying they are not real because they are made in a way that it makes them illegitimate. I don't think that people banding together and saying we have rights creates legitimacy in the rights. I think rights come from a legitimate ruler, and that legitimate ruler has to be sacramentally uh, anointed by God. Now, if you take the view that laws, including duties and rights, stem from a ruler, they're a part of the ruler, then the ability of those laws, of those duties and those rights to participate in God means that they have to have a reality. They have those rights have to be real in a certain sense. And well, when we were talking, you were saying that if, let's say, if the king gives you a right to, let's say, property, and someone destroys your property, that would mean that somehow your rights are not real. I would take issue with it, because I would say, no, 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 the rights are still real. What happened was there was an injustice, and justice would demand that those rights be rectified and recovered, in a sense. So the ruler needs to defend those rights. Now, the problem with thinking that if someone violates your rights, you don't have those rights, it makes those rights inherently arbitrary and disconnected from God. So, for example, I've heard the argument that feminists make that they should have the right to go outside and not be hurt. Okay, the problem with that argument is that they already have that right. What they don't have is the guarantee. What they are expecting is the world to guarantee a situation so that they never have to face the possibility of those rights being violated. But the violation of the rights does not destroy the ontology of the rights. And in that sense, what I'm saying is that the metaphysical existence of those rights exist even if those rights are violated. That's my whole argument. So you can speak if you want to say something against that.
I wouldn't call them rights, but I think there's a metaphysical justice that exists. There's something that is just for you, and there's something that you are kind of determined like to have, for example, life or death. But from God, like, but you, I wouldn't use the word right, but that's I don't mind you using it that way. I don't see any logical way that you're using it if you're saying it
Okay,
doesn't. But I think we agree.
okay. I know that you think we agree. Now, my issue with
You're not gonna allow
what
me not using the word. You're just gonna force me just using the word. I'd say, okay, I agree
no,
completely.
I'm not forcing you to anything. What I'm saying is, if
No, but then
someone,
after I'm a heretic. I'm heretical if I don't use the word right.
if you don't want to use it because you think it's inherently wrong, then yes, I think it's a natural word to use. And
I'm not
what
saying the word is inherently wrong. I'm not saying
well,
uh, it's evil. I'm not saying the word right is evil.
no, but when you say we don't have rights, we have duties. If you're making that argument, which I don't know if you are making, but I've heard it before.
Physically. So
Well,
so we
physically, you
cannot.
don't have the right. You do have the
So
right.
listen. The king has a duty to defend our rights. Okay. Don't doesn't the king have a duty to defend what is just for us? You're muted. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
The king has a right, has the duty to defend our rights.
Because
They're real
because
rights, no rights. They're rights.
everything, no, but everything I could bring back to duty. So we have, so you're saying if the king wasn't able, or the king's guards weren't able to fulfill that duty, okay, uh doesn't it mean that they are like, in the way you're using, right, they're ontologically connected? There is no rights without duty. Is it a good way to say it? So in the way, I think it's just a word concept fallacy that is being used. You're taking it literally that rights don't exist. That's not, it might be the phrase they're using, but I don't think that's what they mean. They mean that the right, so there is no right without duty. That's what they're saying. That's what I
Yes,
think that's
but that,
what
that
teachers.
formulation, no, but that formulation in itself is ambiguous, because you can say there are no rights without duties, and it may be correct, but it doesn't mean that you as a person, in order to get rights, need to have duties, because babies have rights
That's not
and they
what they're
don't have,
saying. That's
it
not what they're
depends on
saying.
how you. It depends on how
No,
you're
but the
saying.
baby, no, but the baby's right to life comes through a duty of their parents. So if their parents so everything comes from duty. That's what they're saying, Ivan. So if the baby
What's the
doesn't
justification of
order
that?
that duty, the duty comes from someone else. There's always a duty. So the baby doesn't have a right. He doesn't have it unless their parents fulfill the duty to protect that baby or to
Okay,
protect that right. Okay,
the argument, there are two arguments there that are completely unrelated. One is that
so they're the
duties,
same.
let me finish. That one is that duties and rights are inherently together. That's one argument. And the other argument is that duties come before rights. Now, I can grant the argument that duties and rights are together in the specific way that we've agreed. What I don't grant is the way in which we know that duties come before rights. How do we know that duties come before rights?
The physical. Okay, so we don't know. We don't know heavenly or in our immortal bodies or our bodies that are connected to our immortal bodies how rights if rights come before duties or not. I'm saying physically, in the physical world, and what we can see. What's up, John? And what we can see, there's nothing. So in our eyes, okay, I don't know if in the it might be in the you might be correct in the eyes of God that we have a God-given right. A baby does have a God-given right, but in what we can see in the physical world, the 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 right cannot be physically present if the parents don't fulfill their duty to protect it. You get me? So in that sense, the duty comes before it because there's always a duty. Maybe it doesn't come from your person; it comes from another person. So the parents have a duty to protect their children. So
Well, I don't think it's a convincing argument. Like it could be correct, but as far as I understand, uh, if the argument is that for you to have rights, someone has to have a duty, um, that doesn't that
okay,
doesn't
well,
follow.
give me an example. Give me an example of a physical right being present without duty, without someone or your duty. What right do you have without duty?
Well, but why does it have to satisfy that condition?
Because
Why
I'm
does it have?
asking you,
Because
because
my argument is that rights come from God and that fundamentally they exist whether or not we want them to exist.
okay, but
So,
you're not giving any example of that God-given right being present without duty.
but why should I?
Because you're making the claim, you have the burden of proof.
I'm making the no, no, no. I'm making the claim that rights are heavenly and that they exist whether or not they are present in the world. So, like that's already the claim I'm making. Like,
Okay,
if you
but
want
that's
me
not
to
what
explain
that's
why,
not what
I
you
can
are
go into
doing.
theology.
But they're not going. Okay, so that's what we have a point that connects. We don't. The thing is, you're arguing against something that's not happening. They're not denying the theology of a God-given right that we cannot see. They're denying the presence of a constitutionally given right that comes without that it's a benefit without duty that doesn't come with any sort of morality or sacrament from God. That's what they're arguing against. They're not arguing that God cannot have any rights or the God cannot give
That
any heavenly or metaphysical rights. That's not what they're arguing against. That's not what I'm arguing
how
against.
am I supposed to know that if all I
We're
hear?
not relating theology. We're not relating it to theology. We're just arguing against the liberal definition of rights. It's not if you could tie it back to theology. That's how what you're doing, and I agree with that. I haven't seen people doing it. People should do it more. I agree.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with that. We
my
have to
point is
but they're not arguing against um, like they're not arguing the theology and logic part. They're just arguing against the logical uh, um, part of the way rights is being used. Okay, that's that's how I see it. Maybe they're not. I don't know. Maybe you're completely right in the way you're seeing it. But that's how I
What
see it.
I
Because
don't
if people,
I don't completely
sorry,
disagree. I don't completely disagree, Nadim, there. I think you're right in the sense that they're trying to go against the modern conception of rights that developed after, let's say, liberalism took hold of the Western world and constitutions, in a sense, replaced monarchs. But the fact that they're using the word right and that they're not differentiating between our modern conception of rights and the conception of rights that we had in antiquity means to me that they're simply saying that rights in general don't exist because they're arbitrary and only based in politics. And
but you
that
have
is
you have
arbitrary, you know?
sure. I can't argue someone else's position. I can't argue also their intentions behind it. So I'll just say we don't know. You could ask them yourself. You know.
Okay, well, then I argue for your position against me, like talking about rights, because you said to me that you had a problem with me talking about rights because it's confusing. I think it's not
No, I
confusing. On the
didn't.
contrary,
No, no, I didn't. I didn't. That's not what I meant. You were typing way too fast. I was trying to juggle everything in one word. Like I couldn't. I don't type that fast. But I think I contradicted myself in our conversation on text. I wasn't uh,
it's
typing it
okay. I
too
didn't
fast.
mean to put you on the spot. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I simply wanted you to clarify your position, not to put you on the spot, but rather to let's say delve deep into some things that I thought you said that implied a worldview that to me had a few contradictions that I wanted to explore because I think it's you think very similar to the people I was criticizing in the sense of thinking that if like the point that I thought was important was that you said that if your physical rights weren't being respected, then they might as well not exist. And I
I
think
didn't
there's a
say that. I didn't
no.
say you might as well. I said no. I said that. No, I told you that. What I then I corrected myself later. I said that if those rights, so that's like I'm not connecting it to theology. I'm connecting it just to the political aspect of right. Okay, so I don't believe in the mass appeal fallacy. If a group of people decide what rights are, then they cannot be infringed. I don't believe that.
Yes, no, I agree with that. I agree with that. But that doesn't inherently make all rights invalid and an arbitrary invention.
I wasn't using theology to I was using the political aspect of a right that's being used. That's what I'm arguing against, and I don't believe those exist. The mass appeal mass appeal fallacy rights do not exist.
Okay, okay. No, I completely understand that position. I myself, my personal position is, I think they're fundamentally illegitimate, but at the same time, like I can see, like I'll ask you this question: do you think that God allows Western nations to be ruled by presidents and not kings, and that these rulers are
Yes,
somewhat legitimate?
yes, but that doesn't infringe the fact that the rights that they are creating aren't from God. They're yeah. So you were saying before that the collection of those laws are good, but they're not. If they might be good for our souls or for our spirit, for ourselves, for salvation, but they're not good as in correlation with God's laws. So if some of those laws are infringing your freedom of of worshiping God, then you shouldn't follow them. So that's the thing is that I think we're stuck on the word right. I would say that something that is just exists in God, and I think there's stuff
And
there
there is
is
no justice then.
what?
There's no justice. That's
No, I'm
that's my
saying there
question.
is. No, I'm saying there is, of course.
Okay, so that's the
There is
issue,
no
and I
justice.
think
Where?
this is the same issue
Can
as
you
when
repeat
we're
the question? I don't know what I said. Yes, because you cut out a bit.
the if there is justice, if there is or there isn't justice in the laws that we do have in the West, even though they come about through illegitimate means.
Sure, but it doesn't make them all just. It doesn't, and their whole don't make it just because like any like there is justice in laws that aren't from God because it depends on how the perspective of God's justice is regarding those laws. Like
Mhm.
so there are laws, of course, there are laws that are just in the eyes of God, yes, but I don't think they're the collection of those laws are no
Well, the
because
reason why I say, can I explain why I say I think that in a collection laws are just? When St. Paul talks about the reason for the state's existence, he says that the state exists to prevent more evil. Like so, the state is like a stopgap for the proliferation of evil. So laws are meant to curtail evil, and I would say to some degree our current laws not only do curtail evil, but the very being of the laws is respected to a certain degree. So in that sense, I'm saying even though I'm mostly against it's
I don't mind that.
let me make an analogy. Like even if a person is super sinful, they still have the image of God and they still have the potential to repent. So
Sure.
the way that we would think about it metaphysically, theologically, is that that person is potentially a saint. Okay, and the reality of that person is still in potential to be manifested for good, right? Because that real existence is good. Now if I'm saying that laws themselves are good, even a bad law for a person, if for a person they need virtue to exist, because for example I would say that even to breathe, even to live has a purpose. God allows people to live for a purpose, and that their very act of being, their very existence means that there is something good, and that God wills them to live. I would say that the state's existence, the state's laws, mean that there is something good about them that is worth, let's say, keeping. And you can say, well, but it's mostly corruption. Yeah, but God allows the West to be corrupt, and it didn't tell Orthodox Christians, okay, now you should destroy all of these giant clans
Sure, sure.
like he did in the
Okay, let me
past.
give you my perspective on that. I agree. I agree with the fact that the whole of law should be followed unless it infringes your ability to be an Orthodox Christian. So every law that infringes the fact that you can't be a pious Orthodox Christian, you cannot follow those laws. Okay, but you have to follow the laws that are given to you. Like you have to follow your ruler because if you look at it through the lens of Saint Paul, they are given the rulers that you are under are given to you by God, even if they're bad rulers. So that doesn't, but it doesn't entail that their collection of laws are on like they're good for us, but it doesn't entail that they're in line with God's justice fully because because they might be good for us because they're good for us at the time, but they're not inherently good, as in they follow perfectly God's theology. In the way I use the word good for us in this way is for our salvation. It's a good struggle. It's a cross to carry. It doesn't mean that they inherently possess God's justice. So the laws themselves are not the collection of laws don't have to be completely aligned with God's justice or God's rights, if you want to use the word rights, but they are good for our struggle, for our cross to carry. I repeated myself twice, but anyway,
Okay,
so that's my idea. It's not. It doesn't give any point to rights being present in those laws.
okay, but I wanted to ask that question because it was going to lead me somewhere else, which is what if I tell you that you don't simply have to obey them mechanically, but that you have to love those laws that are bad?
Yeah, no
Because that's
problem.
no problem, because that's basically my issue with the whole, let's say, saying that those laws are bad, so the fund system is fundamentally bad. Like, I would agree that democracy is bad, that I would prefer monarchy, but if you have a democracy, our duty is not to, like, first and foremost undermine democracy in order to get like the perfect system, even though it would be preferable to get a perfect system, but rather to love our leaders and to wish the best for them and
Yes,
to
of
to
course.
to so in that sense, what I'm saying is, if you have illegitimate rulers or rulers whose legitimacy is suspect, and the laws themselves are made in a very corrupt way, this doesn't mean that they are completely, let's say, completely meant for their destruction. Like these laws, they cannot be simply ignored. They have to be obeyed if they
Sure.
do not
Yes,
violate
we
the
can't.
order of Christianity. Now,
Yeah,
now,
I don't think we it like it denies the fact that we can criticize the bad ones though. Like, why can't we criticize the bad one if we fully while fully obeying them and loving the fact that God has given us a ruler despite maybe we don't deserve one, or so 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 what's wrong with with criticizing the the false ideas that pop out of those liberal or neo conservative kind of idea. What's wrong with?
I don't think there's a problem with criticizing them. What I do think is problematic is to, let's say, criticize them and not love whatever is good about them, not love the purpose that they serve, and because then it becomes like a very superficial critique. What you need to do is to be able to not only critique it but offer, let's say, a substantive alternative,
It's
which is a
more of
view
a
that,
redemption, more of a redemption than a revolution. More of a
yes,
we cannot. Yes, I completely agree with that. We have to find the good in every law. We have to find God in every law, but it doesn't. I don't know how it relates to. I think like we'd have to ask Jim Bob and Andrew and all the others that are using this argumentation if they agree with the points, because I think if you don't agree with that, that's like non-theological, like doesn't fit with orthodoxy. That you can't not you're for, like we have to, as Orthodox Christians, find the good in the laws, but we can still criticize the bad part of them. I don't.
yeah, which is why that's the reason, that's the spirit in which I want to say I want rights to still exist in conceptual form, not only because I think it's valuable for the people whose rights we would be defending, but I think it protects the ruler from being criticized, because now you don't expect the ruler to be perfect. He's just a mediator for God. And it also protects law, and it protects our view of our political community as such, because there is a very big problem. Like, there is no problem with criticizing. The problem is if you criticize and you just destroy, and you don't put anything in its place, then the problem is not. It's like when one person got rid of a demon and then got seven into him. It's like you can't just remove one demon. You have to actually get the Holy Spirit in. And that's my concern. If you just criticize rights and say rights don't exist, what I think is you're trying to win a battle, but you're going to lose the war just for winning the battle. And I do understand the perspective with which they're criticizing rights, because, like I made my video, Carl Schmitt, he criticizes liberalism on those grounds. It's like a powerful enough politician will disregard laws. So what are you talking about when you're saying we got like separation of power? No separation of power is possible. That's a lie. I can say separation of powers is a lie. I can say the modern conception of rights is a lie. I can say that democracy is a lie. All of those things are wrong. I can say that human rights are a lie. But the concept of rights itself, I think, is good. It has a lot of history, and to deny them, I think, is to ironically fall into the same dialectic that the feminists fall into when they say you gotta respect my rights. So it's not that criticizing my rights, that criticizing that is a way to escape that. I think the proper solution is not to fall into a dialectic and say rights don't exist. It's like, no, 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 rights come from God through a particular mediation in our political community in which we are embodied. And this way, you can start to glean a perspective of what your relationship to your leader should be. You should be trying to cover your leader's faults instead of criticizing. And in the spirit of criticism, I see a lot of I'm trying to disrobe my father. I'm trying to expose the corruption in the hierarchy, and that I think is ultimately satanic. I think that kind of spirit. It's not that you cannot like recognize faults or criticize or point out faults in other people. Even King David had his faults laid on him by an underling. But there's a proper way to do it. And the proper way to do it is to try to remind your rulers of God. It's not simply saying, oh, rights don't exist, because I don't think that's a reminder of God. I think that's the opposite. That's basically an ideology that is trying to replace Christianity. And I'm no offense to Andrew Wilson nor to Jimbo, but they're barely recent converts, as am I. So I think that the idea that we could represent Orthodox Christianity when we ourselves are recent converts is very problematic, especially when what they're doing is basically applying a logic that I see as very modern to fight modernism. And the way to fight modernism is not within modernism, it is going back to the fathers, going back to antiquity, and trying to see the world through a more ancient lens. But that's simply my perspective.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would just say that there is something that gives the ability for a sacramental monarch to know what is just for his nation. I think I would I would say it that way. You know, that I would say it that way. I wouldn't. We like. I might be wrong with the usage of my words, but that's how I say it. I don't necessarily call them rights or so. Like there is something just that that should happen. There is some just laws that do exist, and those laws we should admire, and and a monarch has a duty to give out if he's given sacramentally through God. That's how I would say. I wouldn't specifically word it as right, but I don't mind. I don't mind. It's, like I don't see right being like the word right. Me, I'm just focusing on the word right. I don't know. It's just maybe like a natural response, but like I don't see the word right as this word that should be used. I just use another word for it, but it might be right. I might be just using the definition of it. But,
No, no, and now
I
I
think
understand why you.
I think in regards to me, me, not Andrew or Jim. I think in regards to me, we agree. It's just the use of the word me, not what they say.
Mhm. Okay, well, I think now start to understand why they want to use like the word duty to precede rights, in the sense that for you to have a right, somebody has to have given themselves dutifully to that person. So love has a giver and a receiver, and if you're a receiver, there has to be a giver in the first place, right? So
Yeah,
the thing is, in a human terms, in human terms, the king or the ruler or even the father within a family, he cannot think of himself as the origin, and there's a performative aspect. He cannot think of himself as the origin, in the sense that what they have to give is already given by God, theologically speaking. So you can say, well, duties come
sure,
before rights,
sure.
but
But we're
even
just talking about. Yeah, I'm just talking about the physical one. I don't mind that. I don't know if
yeah,
you're. I don't mind that. Like I don't mind that there is something that God is through the monarch, through the father, through the patriarch, is giving um, someone that is dutifully kind of submitting to this patriarchy. This thing, you're calling it a right, but I say just this justice from God, or this righteousness from God, um, exists within a duty, um, but like I still think it could exist like on its own if no one dutifully submits himself to the justice or what is just still exist. So that's like it still exists. The thing that is just still exists. You're calling it a right. I'm not. But I told you from the beginning. It's for me and you at least. I don't know what they're saying. I don't know because they haven't talked about this issue. They're just relating it to the modern use of right. So they might have
yeah,
the same, like we could be charitable and say they might have the exact same idea as you, just that they're not using, um, they're not okay. They're not shedding a light on what should replace it or what should be in the place with it. You know? But yeah, I'm just not using the word right. But you could use it. I don't
yeah.
mind.
Well, my criticism of them, and they could defend themselves if they were here. It's unfortunate that they aren't, but my single criticism is that there's a performative aspect of the argumentation, and I think my personal opinion is that Andrew, he's a little bit too forceful in those things, and he wants to defend a more hierarchical view, which is like hierarchy must be defended. I understand why he does it, but there's a performative aspect of saying I'm the one who's giving you, that becomes, let's say, a parody of itself, in the sense that I think that in the same way that a king that deserves to rule doesn't think that he deserves to rule, um, the the giver that points to himself as the source performatively is doing something very, very, let's say, suspect, in the
Wait,
sense of like,
wait, as the source of the idea, or what? What are you talking?
no, as the source of, let's say, grace, the source. Like, if the king says, I'm the one who's giving you laws, so you should obey me, in a sense, he's cutting out, in that performance, he's cutting out God from the picture. And
In
if
what
you
way
if
is
you in what way, when you say that duty comes before, if you say duties come before rights, then you're performatively like the whole argumentation of men and women, and like women don't have any rights if men don't give them to them. The performativity, even though the argument might be correct, and I completely agree with the argument, uh, there's a point in which it defends performatively a perspective that is fundamentally, uh, let's say, against God, because it like there are things that become untrue when said. Like, if, for example, if I save someone's life and I say I'm the one who saved them, there is something untrue in that, because it wasn't me who saved them, it was God through me. You understand what I mean? So in that sense, to truly
But
be
if
able
he's
to
saying
say
other men have the physical ability to to overtake a government, for example, that is that saying that, like, it's like, do we have to every time specify that God gave them the ability to do that, or
no,
we can?
no, no. The very idea of claiming that authority can be usurped by force is inherently anti-Christian.
Yeah,
Authority
yeah.
cannot be replaced by force.
But we can state that, we can observe that, can't we? He's
What?
not saying that we should use force to overtake. That's not what he's saying. He's just observing the fact that it could happen. That's what he's saying. So saying a man could over like a group of men could overtake a government doesn't mean that he supports the idea of a group of men overtaking a government. He's just observing something that could physically happen. Is it, how is that inherently bad? Just to observe what could happen, what's like the possibility of something happening. That's what he's saying. He's not
Let's
giving his own perspective or the Christian perspective. He's just saying, giving an observation, like this, like, so this and this, saying that you have a right to this could just be taken over by force. He's not saying like we
But
should
that's not
take it over.
true. But that's not
He's not saying
true.
we should.
But that's not true though. Like
In
he's
what way is he
saying,
saying we should take over? Like he's just doing a philosophical analysis of something that he's observing. It's not like an attack or saying that patriarchy, like nothing exists without like patriarchy, because if uh, if uh, if women rule, then it's because patriarchy let it happen. How is that not just an observation? How is that an attack on women or
I,
an attack
I,
on?
I don't think those things are true either. Um, I, I, I
Also,
would, I would, I would be more extreme. I would qualify. There are a couple of things that I would take issue with there. I think that nothing exists outside patriarchy, really, in ontological terms, metaphysical terms. And if you're trying to talk about, let's say, worldly politics, I don't think that power equals authority. So the very idea that men could simply take away women's rights, that's a counterfactual that you say does not let's say promote it, but I think it does. I think it does. I would disagree with it just being just a philosophical musing, in the same way that, like, if you had a girlfriend and I asked you, hey Nadim, would you lend me your girlfriend to have sex for one night? Like, if I ask you that question, is that just a philosophical musing? No,
but
it's
it's
not.
not. It's
On
not.
the other hand,
That's a straw man. It's a straw man. It's not.
no, it's
It
not a
doesn't.
straw man. It's not a
It's
straw man.
it's a. It is. It
If I
is.
tell
He's not
you,
saying.
if I tell
He's not
you,
saying can I. He's saying we. It's possible. Like it's not you. You're not. He's not asking directly. It's as if he's saying I could possibly tomorrow go and physically do it. He's not saying. He's not asking me. Can I do it?
I,
So
I don't
and
know.
I would say yes, possibly you could with your like physically as a man you could, but he's not saying, he's not asking me directly. It's like It's as if I'm saying, oh, I could possibly lift that up. Like I could lift that 10 kilo dumbbell. It's not as if I'm saying, okay, I'm
And why
gonna
does he say it? And why
because
does he say it?
it's an observation of what's happening.
But and if I
Like
disagree, and if I disagree with the argument, and if I say no, you really can't take the government because you men cannot organize amongst each other because you're cocks and you're idiots and you're dependent on a system that hates you and you still can't break away from it. If I make that argument, where is the proof that that his theory is correct? Where is the proof that men could collectively take power from? No, 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 it's just a theory. It's just a theory. So he's saying this, all of this, because ultimately he's let's say very unhappy with the current way that our politics have gone in the West, and I agree with that sentiment. What I disagree with is the philosophical formulation, because it comes with a lot of political philosophy baggage that I think ultimately taints that perspective into being very anti-Christian instead while pretending to be Christian. So while I myself, I'm very close to a perspective where Christian nationalism, in a sense, could be explored, because I think that the state has to have religious values. I don't think that the idea that presenting the argument that in theory, men could take all you have, and like we could simply like destroy your rights. I don't think that's a spiritually sound argument. And it's not spiritually sound, not only because it's not true, because even if we had the power, and even if we did use the power, we wouldn't be able to change God's law, but because fundamentally the framing, and the way I see the framing, is that power can replace authority. And even if you did usurp power through force, that wouldn't give you legitimacy. So what exactly is he saying? He's okay in criticizing the legitimacy of the current system, but he's wrong in the way that he presents an alternative legitimacy system, which is just
I
based on
would
power.
agree with you if he doesn't give other he doesn't give another perspective, because I don't know if you ever heard, but he does give his perspectives on how uh, this taking over should pertain. He doesn't do it, and I don't think he's reflecting a non-Christian view. His idea is that um, the like God should be promoted more in the government, and the more you could locally uh, get into power without like with actual legitimacy, then you'll be able to enlighten the godly aspects of those laws. I don't think he gives his solution. He doesn't only give a theory that man could do that. He observes what could happen, uh, but he gives another solution. Like I don't know exactly what the solution is, but it doesn't sound like this. I've heard it many times. I don't know exactly what it is, but he gives like a solution that um, Christians should sort of infiltrate in those political spheres and push more Christian ideas, push God into the picture and stuff. I think that he talks about that a lot. I don't know why you like. Okay, if he only talked about the theory that this could be possible and that man could take over everything, and that it would be like a non-Christian way, that yeah, but you could use violence or force to take over. That's a non-Christian way. But after he gives his own perspective, I think he does do.
Yeah. Well,
I
I
don't know if you
think
ever heard it, but this part is more famous than the other. But he does talk about the righteous uh, like thing to do in his perspective. I don't think it aligns with the fact that men should should get together and take over the government. He doesn't say that when he gives his own perspective on the solution.
Well, I think honestly the solution is to pray. Like that's my honest solution to all of our political problems. We should pray first. The problem is we're trying to, let's say, fix political problems without praying. And that's fundamentally my issue with just like trying to let's say debate others or to because the problem is not that we might lose against them, but the problem is we might win and present a really idolatrous vision of Christ. Because honestly, our political enemies, even though in a sense they're very strong, they're very stupid. Like, and not only stupid, they're demonically possessed in many respects. So it's not hard to win by let's say trying to offer a better vision. The problem is that that vision has to be truly Christian, and the vision that I see that is promoted in the sense of like simply confronting others and telling them, "Oh no."
What I was trying to say, that's not what I don't think that's what he's doing. I think he does give his perspective on a better thing to do. It's just it's less famous than the critique, because the critique resonates more in like a red pill kind of kind of sphere. But he does give a Christian his idea of a Christian way to do it, but it's not as famous as the critique.
Yeah, well, I think we covered this topic enough. I hope God may forgive us if we made some mistakes,
Yes.
and I pray that all is for His glory. So
Well,
thank you, Nadim.
what's the conclusion? Am I a heretic or not? Because I was before. Now am I? You know?
Like I said that you didn't want that if you didn't want to use the word rights because it wasn't real, that you're a heretic. Do you still not want to use the word rights because they're not real?
No, I
Are
don't
they
think.
right? No.
I don't think the word right is evil in itself. But I I I could use another definition of it. Yes, the another the definition that it's. I could say that God's justice and God's laws and God's righteousness regarding to us do exist. Can you agree with that?
Yes, of course. Are we owed something? Are we owed something for being part of our
By
political communities?
from
No, no,
God?
no,
No,
no, no. From our human rulers.
I don't think we're owed anything because we're sinners.
No, no, no. But I mean by rules, because if you look, for example, Saint Peter denied Christ, and when Christ uh, allowed Saint Peter to let's say to repent from that, he asks Saint Peter, "Do you love me?" And he says, "Yes, Lord." Well, then tend to my flock. Feed my lambs, feed my flock. So in that sense, God
Oh
commands
yes,
leaders, people.
I think leaders have a duty to their flock. Yes.
Yes, so then we have rights as part of like a
You
political
get
community.
okay. If I say that leaders have a duty to their flock, can we agree that can you tell me if I'm a heretical or not? Or
Well, I don't want to call you a
I don't want
heretic.
I just don't want to use the word right, bro. I don't know
It's
why.
kind of
Huh? Okay, just give me the definition of it, and I'll use the definition.
all right. All
Is
right
what is
is
just in the eyes of God.
what is just for you. What is what
Yeah,
what
what
you
is
are
just
as
yes,
your
what is
as
just
your
for you.
portion.
Okay, if I say what is just for you in the eyes of God, without and not say rights, can we agree?
Yes, yes, yes. We can agree.
Do we
We can
agree or
agree.
not?
Yes.
Okay, I have to go answer the phone. So You're muted, but bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Thank you for watching.